We live in interesting times. Today's stories. U.S. and Russia clash at the UN over North Korea's sanctions. Macron draws fire with a career advice to a job seeker. French slaughterhouse workers are on trial, accused of cruelty. North Carolina governor confirms 17 storm-related deaths. Pompeo says President Trump cuts refugee admissions to 30,000 for 2019. And Edmonton's summer ends early with snowfall in September. Hello everyone, I am Jennifer Polentan, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The United States on Monday accused Russia of cheating on UN sanctions against North Korea, with plans for a railway project, oil transfers, and ongoing business dealings with Pyongyang. Russia shot back and charged that Washington was blocking steps to foster cooperation between North and South Korea and using a UN sanctions committee as a select channel to punish North Korea.
U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley told a Security Council meeting that the United States has evidence of consistent and wide-ranging Russian violations on the tough economic penalties imposed on North Korea.
Step by step, sanction by sanction, and time again, Russia is working across the board to undermine the sanctions regime. Systematic. Russia has not simply looked the other way as its nationals and entities engage in activities explicitly prohibited by UN sanctions. Russia has engaged in a concerted campaign in the Security Council to cover up violations of sanctions, whether they're committed by Russia or citizens of other states. The United States has evidence of consistent and wide-ranging Russian violations.
Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia responded sanctions cannot be an end in itself. He told Haley, quote, "You should, instead of creating roadblocks, promote the inter-Korean cooperation and dialogue," unquote.
Ограничительные меры, введенные резолюциями Совета Безопасности в отношении КНДР, не могут быть самоцелью.
The raucous meeting highlighted divisions between the United States, which is pushing for sanctions to be fully enforced on North Korea, and Russia, which argues that incentives must be offered to Pyongyang to move forward. Led by the United States, the Council last year adopted 3 sets of wide-ranging sanctions aimed at cutting off revenue to North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear programs. Haley said Russia had been cheating despite supporting UN sanction resolutions. She said, quote, "Step by step, sanction by sanction, and time again, Russia is working across the board to undermine the sanctions regime," unquote. The United States maintains that the UN sanctions, which have dealt a blow to North Korea's economy, must remain in place until Pyongyang has completely scrapped its nuclear weapons and military programs.
Restaurateurs in Paris's Montparnasse neighborhood react to President Emmanuel Macron's advice to a young job seeker to simply start looking in high-demand sectors like restaurants or construction. In a video doing the rounds on social media, Macron suggests going to Montparnasse neighborhood, an area chock full of cafes and restaurants, assuring him he could find him a job if he crossed the street.
In a video doing rounds on social media, Macron is seen talking with the young man during a public open house at the Élysée Palace on Saturday, part of the country's Heritage Days. He tells the president, quote, "I am 25 years old. I send resumes and cover letters. They don't lead to anything," unquote. Macron replies, quote, "If you're willing and motivated in hotels, cafes, and restaurants, construction, there's not a single place I go where they don't say they're looking for people. Not one. It's true," unquote. He suggests going to the Montparnasse neighborhood, an area chock full of cafes and restaurants, assuring him he would easily find work. He says, quote, "If I crossed the street, I'd find you one," unquote. He tells the man to go ahead, and the man replies, "Understood, thank you," as they shake hands. Industry officials say there are some 100,000 hotel and restaurant jobs that need filling in France. and have called on Macron to regularize more illegal immigrants to help cover the shortage. Yet critics took to Twitter to deride the advice from the president, a former investment banker who has struggled to shake off a reputation as, quote, president of the rich. One user wrote, completely disconnected from the reality of the French. Another asked, how can someone show that much contempt, lack of empathy, and ignorance in just 30 seconds? Christophe Castanet, the head of Macron's Republic on the Move party, rejected accusations that said Macron had poorly treated the unemployed. He said in a television interview Sunday, quote, is what the president said false? If you go to the Montparnasse neighborhood, you won't find that they need workers? Unquote. He said he prefers a president who will tell the truth. It was not the first time Macron had found himself in hot water after appearing to dismiss the concerns of ordinary people while he pushes reforms aimed at shoring up economic growth. He once called opponents to his reforms slackers and criticized union protesters for stirring up trouble instead of finding new jobs.
Dans la réalité, il y a du travail, mais concrètement, les gens, vu les circonstances, il n'y a pas d'argent, donc ils n'engagent pas. Donc c'est pas si facile de trouver du travail aujourd'hui. Il suffit pas de traverser la rue et on a du travail.
Vraiment se bouger si on veut trouver du travail et faire une bonne impression. Et on le sait très bien que c'est pas, on va pas partir le matin en se disant ce soir je vais rentrer avec un CDI. Pour moi c'est impossible.
Macron's poll ratings have slumped to their lowest levels since his election in May 2017, as tax cuts intended to spur spending, mainly for companies and higher earners, have yet to bear much fruit. 5 slaughterhouse workers went on trial in southern France on Monday over footage showing abuse of livestock at a site which prompted widespread outrage, as well as inspections at abattoirs nationwide.
Brigitte Gauthier of the L214 Animal Rights Group said they expect this trial to recognize the extreme suffering of these animals because regulations were not followed. The group, whose name refers to the 1976 clause establishing that animals are sentient beings, was behind the posting of secretly recorded video footage in March 2016 at the slaughterhouse in Mont-Léon-Lichard. The images included employees bleeding a sheep while it shows signs of consciousness and a lamb being butchered alive. It followed similar videos posted by L214 at 2 other abattoirs and prompted a parliamentary inquiry as well as a series of inspections at sites across France. 3 employees, as well as the company's director, now retired, have been charged with animal mistreatment and not following regulations such as ensuring that animals have been fully stunned before killed. A 4th employee is charged with violating the rules. But for Gauthier, this trial will be the occasion to demonstrate the responsibilities of the state and the veterinary services. An employee from another abattoir, filmed by her group, was given an 8-month suspended prison sentence in April 2017. Similar videos from other countries in recent years have raised pressure on lawmakers to impose stricter oversight on slaughterhouses accused of unnecessary cruelty in order to maximize profits. French animal rights advocates, including the actress Brigitte Bardot, have called for surveillance cameras to be installed in slaughterhouses. But the measure is unlikely to be included in a new law being debated by Parliament on food and agriculture, which calls for tougher punishments in the case of cruelty at abattoirs or in animal transport, and a mandatory animal welfare chief at each establishment.
Je suis utilisateur de l'abattoir. Voilà, c'est pas la réalité. On a réussi avec des images à faire des trucs vraiment. Voilà, c'est reconnu quand même que l'agneau qui est écartelé, c'est un accident. On le voit bien sur les images.
C'est de démontrer qu'il n'y avait pas de problème de fonctionnement du matériel, que nombre d'infractions souffrent du doute et que c'est au ministère public d'apporter la preuve. Puis surtout aujourd'hui, ce que je crois qu'on a vu de manière éclatante, c'est le rôle des services vétérinaires, et la question qu'on doit se poser, c'est est-ce qu'un abattoir ou un directeur est responsable des transgressions autorisées par les services vétérinaires.
Up next, North Carolina governor confirms 17 storm-related deaths. Pompeo says President Trump cuts refugee admissions to 30,000 for 2019. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The death toll from Hurricane Florence rose to 23 in the Carolinas on Monday, as many low-lying neighborhoods remained underwater, and a flood warning was issued for others as rivers continued to rise amid pelting rain.
A tornado watch was issued for parts of North and South Carolina, as emergency management officials also warned of the potential for dam failures and landslides. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper said at a press conference, "This is an epic storm that is still continuing. This is a monumental disaster for our state."
Catastrophic flooding and tornadoes are still claiming lives and property. My most important message is first. For many parts of North Carolina, the danger is still immediate. Flood waters are rising as rivers crest, and they will for days. As of this morning, North Carolina has 17 confirmed deaths due to this storm. We mourn the loss of each and every life, and our hearts.
Cooper said they hope there are not more. At least 6 deaths have been confirmed in neighboring South Carolina, with the latest being the driver of a pickup truck who drove into standing water in Lexington County. More than a dozen rivers across North Carolina were at major flood stages on Monday and threatening to rise to critical levels.
Please don't make yourself someone who needs to be rescued. Again, stay off the roads in much of the state, especially south of US 64 and east of Interstate 73-74. Many roads in our state are still at risk of floods. Roads you think are safe can be washed away in a matter of minutes.
Wilmington, on the banks of Cape Fear River in North Carolina, was almost completely cut off by land, but emergency management teams managed to truck food and water overnight into the port city of 120,000 people. North Carolina Emergency Response Department officials said that 23 truckloads of meals, ready to eat, packaged by U.S. military rations, and crates of bottled water had been sent into Wilmington. Mayor Bill Saffo told residents on Twitter, quote, "We're dealing with some very, very tough situations with respect to the impassable roads coming into the city of Wilmington. As the water recedes, things will get better," unquote. In Fayetteville, the Cape Fear River was expected to reach major flood stage at 58 feet on Monday and hit nearly 62 feet on Tuesday before receding. The Deep River at Ramseur was slightly above major flood stage at 25.5 feet. The National Hurricane Center, or the NHC, warned that Florence, which had been downgraded to a tropical depression, continues to dump heavy rains on parts of North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina. The National Weather Service said that there is an elevated risk for landslides in North Carolina. North Carolina officials said there has been a small dam breach that did not cause any significant damage, and they were monitoring the structures closely. Numerous roads across eastern North Carolina were blocked by fallen trees and flooding, including parts of I-95, a major north-south artery. Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen announced meanwhile that she plans to visit North Carolina to discuss the response and recovery efforts in the two flood-affected areas. President Donald Trump has also announced plans to visit the flood-hit region this week.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announces that the U.S. will reduce the number of refugees admitted to the country to 30,000 in 2019. This marks a historic low and a significant cut from the quota of 45,000 this year and the quota of nearly 85,000 in 2016.
The United States anticipates processing up to 310,000 refugees and asylum seekers in fiscal year 2019. We propose resettling up to 30,000 refugees under the new refugee ceiling, as well as processing more than 280,000 asylum seekers. This year's refugee ceiling reflects the substantial increase in the number of individuals seeking asylum in our country, leading to a massive backlog of outstanding asylum cases and greater public expense.
Coming up, Edmonton summer ends early with snowfall in September. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C., and I'm Jennifer Polintan. The season after summer is supposedly fall. However, in Edmonton, Canada, summer ends early, not with leaves falling, but with snow. Thomas I. Likeness with the story.
According to the calendar, it's still summer. Fall isn't until September 22nd, but here I am brushing snow off my truck. Since the beginning of September, people in northern Alberta have been enduring below-average temperatures and rain mixed with snow. Temperatures have been hovering near the freezing point, and because of cloud cover, we don't see much sunshine. It's just plain miserable. Normally, temperatures in this part of the province would be in the low to mid-teens. Harvesting of crops has been delayed, and grain farmers worry if there's much more snow, crops will be damaged, which translates into less money for lower quality grain. But there may be cause for optimism. A couple of the signs of winter that have not yet been noticed: there are no flocks of migratory birds in the sky flying south to warmer climates. And the fur on rabbits turns white when winter is about to set in so they can better hide from predators. As you can see, this little guy is still wearing his summer colors. According to the Weather Network, it will be the last week of September before things return to normal. Despite the cool temperatures and snow, it's still better than many parts of the world where they're experiencing weather calamities. Enjoying the last few days of summer in Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Thomas. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Jennifer Polintan, and I am 1 with 25.